Today is the day we are bonding the inside part of the side decks to the inner hull. And it's going to be a little bit different because we're not going to kind of clamp it down or use all of our cleats.
That's what it wasn't it? Gravity taking over.
Yep. After 8 years of the nomadic life, involving crossing oceans in a 34-foot Sabre, refitting an aluminum boat, and then taking that to the Arctic Circle, we're back at it again with a brand new build. This is Matt, and I'm Jessica. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and join us every week as we start our newest project of building a 42-foot catamaran from the ground up. The next item to get bonded down on our boat was the foredeck. We had done dry fits with this before bonding our side decks down, but this was the next piece in the puzzle before we could move on to cabin sides. Because the forwardmost area of our foredeck is going to be a watertight buoyancy chamber, we needed to prep that area for the best bond to the foredeck, knowing we'll never have access to it again once the deck goes on. So, my job for the afternoon was to clean the surfaces with 40 grit sandpaper, which will later be fiberglassed in preparation for the deck. It is go time now for bonding on our foredeck, and yesterday you would have seen Matt putting those 90-degree flanges in place that we had made so that the foredeck can rest in that forward area that we will not have access to once this thing goes down.
Okay, so
here's the thing about those 90-degree flanges. I know that I was filming that day. In fact, there's actually photographic evidence where you can see a GoPro sitting right next to Matt as he starts to bond them in. But for the life of me, I cannot find that footage while I'm editing this video, which we all know means I'm going to find it as soon as it publishes. But anyway, what we did in those forward webbing areas is because that is going to be a watertight area that won't be accessed again once that foredeck goes down, we just ended up making those 90-degree pieces out of our fiberglass. I think this was a combination of our 12-ounce 45-45 double bias and our chop strand, so a little bit thicker on one side. And after I had spent the afternoon sanding and prepping the areas, Matt used our thickened resin from Total Boat to get those adhered on. And then we're going to give it a full night to cure before the foredeck goes on. So that was that process there. Sorry I can't find the footage. I'm pretty sure I actually got some good stuff there. But on with the rest of the video. So he is in the process right now of taking more of our thickened polyester resin from Total Boat and now placing that on the top of the flanges, and once that is done, we'll mix up the methacrylate bonding agent and then get that kind of like on the side gel coated, which we removed, fiberglassed edges. Good over there. You shove it this way. That's good.
Now, is you're going to just place a work back and forth along where the bulkhead is, and
soft spot.
Yeah. Take that bar, put it across the front, and you're gonna go down and put the orange clamps, a bunch of them over here, and you're gonna clamp this down so it's the same width as this.
Okay.
And make sure it's straight across.
Yeah.
61 degrees is too warm.
That's quite warm. So I've got it. Oh. So I have it pretty fair between the joints. I do have a little bit of dip in here, but we're talking, I mean, it is barely registering on a
3 foot, 4 foot level.
4 foot level, yeah. 5 foot level. 4 foot, whatever it is. Yeah, 4 feet we'll call it. So yeah, it's barely registering just a little bit, and I think once we get our non-skid down, we won't really see that. There's a high spot right dead in the center, which is fine. That really isn't an issue. It'll allow water to flow, of course, properly. I think we're okay, just as long as you got that edge.
Yeah, that is my job lately. I'm putting all these clamps on the edge against our straight edge here, and just trying to make sure it keeps a straight line across. Doing a little bit of daredevil standing right now because I need to try and stand back as much as possible for perspective, but there's this beam in my way. But I think things are looking good. Be straight, of course, fiberglass thicker here is going to change how things look, and then it dips down, so obviously I can't necessarily just go by squeeze out. Yeah, I'm going to climb down before I fall down. Good, so everything is in place. Matt has gone through with the level and used the cleats to make sure that the surface is level all the way across, the best we're going to get it anyway. So we're going to let this cure for about an hour and then just come back and check on it. Make sure it doesn't need heating lamps or any extra heat, but to be honest, it started curing so fast on us. I don't think that's going to be an issue, although today is pretty much the last day of the month that we're going to have temperatures over 60 for bonding, so this may be our last methacrylate bond of 2021. We'll have to see. May not happen again until next spring. So now that the season's starting to change and we're pretty much the only ones at the marina, I found myself getting ready in the marina's bathrooms so that I can keep my dirty fiberglass clothes there and away from the boat. So as I begin my day today with my Athletic Greens drink, because I am on a journey to a healthier me, so by doing this daily I get a lot more energy, which I'm going to need today because we are moving some very big pieces around in the tent, so much so that we've actually brought on a set of extra hands. So let's go in there and see what Matt and our friend are up to.
Yeah. Oh wait, there's more.
So things look a little different in here.
That's a response you get from me. We just moved in the side panels, the cabin sides. Finally got those in place. We have the front piece in. This is going to have hatches cut in it, so we'll be able to open those up. And since we don't know exactly what size hatches we're going to be using yet, those were not pre-cut. But you can see kind of through the plastic here, you can see where the windows are going to be on the side, the front shape of it, and now you can kind of get an idea of how everything is laid out. We're gonna open them up right now, kind of dry fit them, but we got a lot of prep work to do before we can actually bond these in place. We're hoping we have another weather window in 4 days. We're hoping to have them prepped, and then we can kind of bond them that day, or at least 1 or 2 of those. We shall see. It's going to be a lot of work in the meantime. Be a nice ladybug. Like a Vietnamese ladybug.
Open her up. In case you know, so we have a wonderful Jeffrey back with us today.
Hello.
He's our muscle. Part of our muscle.
I don't know about that.
Right now. That's fine. Yep, that looks good. Let's go do that side. Yeah, we gotta get that plastic down at all of these surfaces.
Gotta protect everything, keep it pretty.
All right.
The inside living space looks huge. I like your stance.
You like the sand?
Like half in
Half
a
through a window. That's the inner.
Check this half in a window.
Up and over?
Let that come back?
Nope, go up.
Oh,
We haven't, it hasn't been cut yet.
Yeah,
so
no,
I
we
don't
gotta
think it's
trim.
actually gonna fit.
Set it there.
No, not right, but.
So we have to trim the bottoms.
We gotta trim the bottoms.
So this has got to come back
Okay.
slightly. See, this has got to come to this side.
Yep, you're right. Alright, so let's move this guy here.
It's got it.
Alright, get it to
Do you want me to come in and help?
right there.
Alright, boys, let's get it in place.
All right, so we got it.
We gotta get
Lock
it
it back.
down.
It's still not quite there.
It's still,
So you just a little like.
it's still, I think, too tight.
Remember how we mentioned before our cockpit seats were remolded to sit lower after the transom and deck had already been molded? This is another one of the things we'll have to go back and fix because we made that decision halfway through the process. But the rest of it is looking great, and we cannot wait to see how she comes together.
This makes me very happy. Just set up the level to see how our progress has been today. I've just been using measuring tape to kind of lay everything out and trying to figure out if I have it pretty square or not. And set up the level, and we are absolutely on it. There may be maybe a millimeter one way or the other, but beyond that, it is absolutely precise. We're hitting in the corners, right in the spot that we're supposed to. Same thing in the forward pillars too, which you can't see that one because it's blocked by this bulkhead, but it is right on. Also, our angle 17.5. 17.5. Bam! Exactly on for the angle too. As you can see, I got a little carried away originally with the cutout over here. We'll end up filling in and glassing that anyway, so I guess it's not a big deal. I would love it to not have to do that, but that's just part of the build process. But everything lined up really, really well. We should be able to, hopefully tomorrow or the next day, we have good weather for probably the last of the season maybe, to do these 2 bonds. I don't know if we have enough methacrylic to do the forward one, but either way, we're going to do as much as we possibly can within that window.
Georgie and I are very happy girls today. Well, she was happy until she kind of got like all tangled back here, but it is a beautiful sunny day, one of the last ones that we can expect this year with temperatures warm enough to bond. So Matt is in the tent right now doing an acetone wipe of the areas, and yeah, we're gonna get those side windows bonded on. The first one today, because not only do we need like all of the clamps we have for the one side, but we want to make sure that we have enough methacrylic bonding material. Don't want to plan on doing both and run out halfway through. So we'll see how it goes, but aren't you excited, Georgie? Yeah, it's bonding day. All right, we are hoping that this is going to be a fairly easy process just because everything is pretty accessible and there's not too much space to cover. We're going to start by making 1.5 kilos of our methacrylic bonding agent, and the areas that are going to get covered in beads, of course, are going to be this front area that Matt is doing the acetone to right now. We're going to set it right on the surface, but then when we get to the window itself, there is a flange that goes kind of like under the deck. So the plan is to put a bead across the side, the top side, and then a bead across the bottom. So then we will then lift it over and kind of put it into place and then get everything tightened. But because we're like right at the temperature where this stuff cures, we're hoping for some extra work time today to make sure we can get all those adjustments done before it starts to harden. And I can't touch it now because it's been white, but we're also going to put a bead on the side there. There's lots of sharp, pointy corners you might want to watch out for.
Oh, my knee.
Might be like another 100-gram job.
That's more than 100 grams.
I think that's probably half, 250.
Here, your clean glove.
Clean glove.
Look at this.
Okay. After we had set the cabin side in place, Matt went to drill in a cleat from the underside near bulkhead 6. Then, to pull the cabin side tight with the edge of the side deck, we used 3 sets of C-clamps to tighten the areas together. The inside portion, which was resting against gel coat, had a piece of foam taped on to protect the surface. Even though the forward cabin side was not getting bonded in at the moment, we still needed it in place to make sure what we did bond was aligned properly.
Okay, some of these are going to need that same thing.
Part of what Matt has just done here is we've taken the
Flange.
and used our usual cleats to get that down, and he's got a spacer that's just under 1/4 of an inch, and so he kind of would slide that along and then adjust the screws to bring it either up or down as necessary. So now that whole entire surface should be the same height, which then we will continue all the way around and know exactly what space we want that to be for all of these. In theory, it'll work.
Uh-huh.
I love things in theory.
Well, it seems to work out so well in theory.
Yeah. And yes, we are just as disappointed as you are that we do have to eventually go back, fill all these holes, and put gel coat on it to get it to match the existing surface. So we're gonna need some lessons.
Well, the common comment that we got in the last week's episode were basically questions about the holes that we're putting into our beautiful gel coat surface. Understandable. We did touch on it previously, but I know a lot of people are jumping in and out of this series. The holes themselves will get filled in. To do that, what we do is for the seams and the holes themselves, they get backfilled in with the methacrylate adhesive that we're using to actually bond the panels into place. Kind of shallow. There's going to be little valleys in them. And then in those little valleys, we'll end up filling that in with a thickened gel coat and then spray on a little bit more gel coat on that, polish it out, and you'll never know that they're there. It's actually a pretty common thing, even on production boats where they have to align panels together, is they'll drill through and pull them into alignment so they're flush, and then go through and fill back in those holes later.
And I think that means we are done for the day. But the good news too is that we definitely have enough to do that one tomorrow. I think it took 2.5 kilos in all, so we can get that one done, but unfortunately, we're just gonna have to wait till spring. Damn.